Only connect. E.M. Forster said that about a century ago, back when the easiest ways to do that were face-to-face or through the post. It was before we all had telephones, cell phones, smartphones, texting, Bluetooth, computers, iPads, laptops, email, Twitter, Facebook, Foursquare, Friendster, well, Friendster. The point is, with all of these tools and media at our disposal, it's more important than ever to only connect. Now, how do we do that? Same as ever, same as in Forster's time, same as before. You reach out, you take a leap of faith, and you follow through. I'm here today because of a community and a connection called 2AM Tea. The T stands for theater, and the 2 a.m. stands for the middle of the night. About a year and a half ago, I sent an email to a sound designer here in Chicago named Nick Keenan. We had been talking on Twitter for a while, and I wanted to get his opinion on some theater ideas. And the last line of the email said, "And now I'm going to bed because it's 1 a.m. and I'm very sleepy. I had to get up in the morning to put my kids on the school bus." But I stayed on the computer long enough to check Twitter one more time, and there it was, a private message from Nick, and it says, "These ideas are really exciting. How many of them can we talk about in public?" I said, "Well, this one and this one and that one." Okay. So we just started talking right there on the spot, out in the open on Twitter, 1 in the morning my time. And as we talked, more people joined in, and then more people, and suddenly it went beyond the people that we knew. It went beyond Chicago and the Midwest. People from around the world, in this one night, kept joining in this conversation. 3 or 4 conversations weaving in and out of each other, all sparked by those 3 ideas that we had started with. By the time I got off the computer, it was 6 in the morning. I had just enough time to wake the kids up, feed them, and throw them on the bus before I passed out. Chris Vire, theater editor of Time Out Chicago, woke up that next morning, saw hundreds of messages in his Twitter stream, and he typed, "Great, I missed the great 2 a.m. theater summit." Okay, that's an interesting idea. It became a hashtag, 2AMT. That's a searchable archive of a conversation on Twitter. As long as the tag is in the tweet, you'll be able to follow it. It will thread whether you follow these people or not. You'll see all of these responses. It became a website, 2amtheater.com. We distilled those conversations into blog posts to make them easier to follow. But then we started using the blog to spark new conversation, to respond to things going on in the world of theater. Then it grew beyond that. Now it became a place where we developed original creative work, new projects, people working together virtually across international borders. Why? Because we could, because we were open to making those connections and trying new ideas. My theater company, I'm based in a little tiny river town in southern Indiana. The nearest civilization where you can find Targets and bookstores and Starbucks and traffic is about an hour away. We have cows. We have a little historic district down by the Ohio River. It's very exciting. But because of Twitter, because of the social media, and because of these connections I've made to all of these other artists and theater companies, I can reach beyond the 25,000 people that live in Jefferson County, Indiana. 25,000. And it's all because I reached out. I took that leap of faith and I followed through. I just finished reading Bossy Pants by Tina Fey, which I highly recommend. And as part of it, she mentions the 3 rules of improvisation. I'm going to share them with you because they're fitting here. First rule is, say yes. If I walk out to do an improv scene and I start directing airplane traffic on the runway, right? And my scene partner looks at me and goes, "That's not how you do the Village People." I'm not going to stop dead and say, no, I'm on a runway, come on, let's go with this. I'm going to say yes and go with his premise. Now, it doesn't mean say yes to everything in the real world. It just means respect your scene partner's ideas and keep an open mind. That leads to the second rule. Say yes and. Maybe I can bring that scene back to being on an airplane runway. Maybe I'm dancing on the runway. I don't know. It's not going to be the idea I started with, but now I have all of this to play with that wasn't there before. That leads to the next rule. Make statements. This is a nice way of saying don't just ask questions. If all you do is ask questions, you're putting the burden of creativity on your partner. You're not contributing to the ideas. You're pulling them out of your partner, but they're doing all the work. Now, it doesn't mean don't ask questions, obviously, but once you see the outlines of the idea, of the scene, of where you're going, make those statements, make that outline, and keep moving forward. The corollary to all that, be willing to fail. Not every idea is brilliant, not every scene is funny. Now, I'm going to restate those a little bit in terms of connection, because a good improv troupe, a good improv scene lives and dies based on the connection between the people involved in it. So I have 3 rules of C's. Here are your drinking words for this talk, by the way. Communication, cooperation, and collaboration. Communication. I've heard it said over and over again from people who don't get the Twitter, quote, true intimacy is not possible in 140 characters or less.
BS.
Well, that's true, but true intimacy isn't possible in a single sentence spoken face to face. It's in the conversation that grows and continues and evolves. Because make no mistake, whether you're talking to a person one-on-one or you're typing back and forth to them, it's a conversation. Keep moving forward. This is brought home to me every time I meet someone that I have talked with extensively on Twitter. There's no getting to know you blind date awkwardness. It's like, this is a friend I haven't seen in 10 years, and as soon as we start talking, we're talking at 90 miles an hour because there's so much to say. It's so exciting. I thought that happened the first time by a fluke. No, it happens every time. Communicate. Find those voices. Don't just preach to the choir. Find those voices and bring the choir and tell everybody else what you're doing. Now, that leads to the next one, cooperation. At 2AMT, we like to talk about ideas. Now, you've all heard it. There is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all idea. And that's true if you assume that the idea is a fixed, solid thing that never changes and never grows. We like ideas that are scalable, that are flexible, that are adaptable. Ideas that any theater company, any arts organization, at any level, from a storefront to a major regional theater to a Broadway show, could do anywhere at any time. One of those ideas is, if you don't mind, 360 storytelling. There are a lot of storytelling formats out there like The Moth and Second Story where they're curated. They have specific storytellers come to tell specific stories. 360 invites your audience to come and tell their stories. The only rule is each person gets 6 minutes or 360 seconds to tell a story and bring it full circle. Outside of that, anything goes. You can do it with a theme, you can do it without a theme. You can do it like a poetry slam and make it a competition. As long as the people tell their stories, go with it. There's more about it on our website, but I'm going to tell you a quick story about my own experience with this. In the tiny river town in southern Indiana, we do it without a theme. We just say, come, tell your stories. Anything goes. But at the end of the night, I'll find a thread that goes from story to story and pull them all together into a larger narrative. And now the people who have already gotten excited by this, they've created a story and they've performed it. Now they're seeing those stories in the context of their community, of this group of people. And this is what made their community. They come back to the next one. They bring friends. They come to our theater shows because they're curious to see what kind of stories we tell when we have costumes and sets and considerably more than 6 minutes. It's just magical to watch. Like I said, there's more about that on our website. One of the other ideas that we talk about is never be dark. Now, I've mentioned this to large theaters before, and they say, oh, we're never dark, we're always busy, we always have a show going on. We always have a show, one show for 5 weeks. Maybe you have 2 shows, maybe you have 2 spaces. If I've already seen those shows, worse, if I don't want to see either show, I'm not going to think about your performance space for at least 5 or 6 weeks. Why am I going to go there? There's nothing going on. But if you open the lines of communication to your local performing groups, theater companies that produce consistently, artists, poets, musicians, bring them in to that black box theater that you never use. You built it, but you don't have enough stuff and you don't have enough money to put in there. Bring them in. Bring in the groups like Taffety Punk in DC, Le Petomane Theater in Louisville, Kentucky, any one of hundreds of little theaters here in Chicago. Bring them in. You may have heard certain arts administrators, well, arts administrator, talking about millennials who don't have exposure to the arts and don't go to theater. Those are the shows they're going to see, and they're selling out the house every night. Bring those companies into your space. Bring their audiences into your space. Why not? Don't charge exorbitant rents. Hell, don't charge any rent at all. Make it as easy for them to produce in your space as possible, and share those audiences. Expose them to other shows that are going on in your space. Maybe one weekend you have a local company. The following weekend, you do some 360 events. The weekend after that, open it up to someone who's traveling from Fringe Festival to Fringe Festival, who can walk in with an existing light plot and do a show, boom, right on the spot. The week after that, maybe you have some musicians, and then you cycle it through again. A different local company, another 360 event. Maybe you have readings of shows that you're considering for next season. Maybe you use that to get audience input to see whether or not they'd like to see that show. Why not? Cooperate with all of these different groups. Become a social hub for your community. Become the one place to see live theater every week, and you'll be on people's radars. Why aren't we doing this? Steppenwolf is trying it with the Garage Rep. ACT Theater in Seattle does this, and they're wonderful. But we could all do this. This could happen everywhere, and we're not doing it. That leads to the last one, collaboration. Maybe you discover new artists and actors and playwrights and directors and designers in your community. Maybe you hire them for your own productions. Maybe you work together with them to design productions that they can take elsewhere around the region. And now they're not just performing somewhere else, they're saying, this is the place to come when you come to Louisville, Kentucky. This is the place to come when you come to Cincinnati, Ohio. Why not? Communication, cooperation, and collaboration. These are the 3 things without which the connections and the community that is 2AMT would not exist. Now, these are ideas that we think are worth sharing. It's why we do what we do. They're ideas that could have stayed in a tiny river town in southern Indiana. But I reached out, I took a leap of faith, I made the follow through, and I said yes, and. What does this all boil down? What does this all boil down to? 2 words. Thank you.